What you're about to experience are my opinions and truths. I'm suggesting these possibilities for you to consider, enabling you to come up with your own conclusions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, code breakers around the world, another scripted reality. This one will be number 30. Wow, why 30 and how special this number is? The root of this is the 3, which means expansion. The 0 means infinite potential. That's what 30 means through numerology, expansion and infinite potential. The two people I have here, two amazing minds, two of my favorites, Braden and Robert Edward Grant. I hope I get to meet them one day in person and collaborate. These fine, intelligent human beings are absolutely amazing. And the reason why I am using them as part of the scripted reality number 30 is because of this think tank, this podcast that was released by Robert Edward Grant just, I think 11 or 12 hours ago. It was released today. I'm shooting this on July 1st. A few people have sent me this, but of course I am connected to Robert's channel, so I saw it when I woke up and got to listen to the whole thing. Amazing, amazing content. Two amazing minds. But what I wanted to show you is just how scripted this think tank was. The question I will ask you here is, Robert, because this was Robert's think tank, did he purposely choose Braden to be part of this think tank? And you see I have the arrow here. Did he choose think tank number 67 because Braden was going to be part of it? If Robert's watching this, Robert, did you purposely and consciously choose 67 for a very specific reason? Well, again, you don't even have to. See, that's the beautification. When you're in the flow state, which Robert and Gregg are, you don't even have to try to do anything. It comes out this exact way, and this is scripted reality. I'm going to show you how amazing all of this is. We're going to start here. Just to the right of Robert, we have his birth card. He was born on May 16th, 1969. The tarot is the 3 of Pentacles, and it's card number 67. And again, the connection to this being episode number 67. Of course, this is my fourth breakdown with the Sir Robert Edward Grant involved in this. I couldn't help myself. I saw it right away. So here we are. And so the architect, Robert Edward Grant acting on behalf of the architect. Braden acting on behalf of the architect, right? Instantly and automatically. And again, this is where I postulate. Did Robert stop the podcast because he was looking at the clock? Was somebody waving to him in the background saying, hey, you got to finish up because we have to? Did they edit it to get it, to have it come out this way? The timestamp, ladies and gentlemen, 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 40 seconds. And what are those numbers? What are those numbers a permutation of? How about pi? 3.14. And you know how big those numbers are when they come in relation to the Great Pyramid, which Robert Edward Grant is really a lot about. But it's not just that. See, you look at all these numbers, right? Obviously, this is going to add up to the number 8. You're going to see this in a little bit. That's what pi is. But the 134, when you go to the periodic table, that leads to the element barium. How? Because we come down to the common oxidation states and isotopes, and you can see that there is isotope 134, barium. And what's interesting is, see, Robert was born on the 136th day of the year, and if you include the common year, it's the 137. And he is talking during this podcast, he talks about the fine structure constant, which is the number 137. So even though he was born on a common year, he still is incorporated into the 137 which is the average isotope of barium. And you know how big barium is. It's tied to ancient Egypt, the Ra, the Ba, and the Ka. And what does the Ba mean? Well, 56, when you go to numerology, means this right here. Lights, camera, action. Thank you, Roland, for this, showing me this years ago. What does barium mean? The movie. You're inside of a movie, because what it is spirit into matter. That's what Ra and Ba and Ka mean. Okay? For this, and this is what he's talking about here. So this think tank leads to the movie. And what I'm postulating here is that we are entertainment. We are not in control of our movie, our reality show. We are just part of the screenplay, playing it out. Like, can you change the course of a movie when you press play? No, it's already set in stone. Well, why would it be any different with these outcomes here, with our reality, since we're in a movie? You see, with that timestamp. Now, let's go to his subscriber count, right? This is how you look at this reality. At this current moment, as I'm shooting this, 164,000 subscribers. When he uploaded this think tank with Greg Braden, 164,000 subscribers. So we're going to take a look at this 164 through the periodic table. And here it is. It's holmium. Holmium has an average isotope of 164.930. It is 67 protons. And this is a very key icon here because you can see the crown. The crown, this is tied to Stockholm, Sweden. It's called Holmia, the Latinized spelling for Stockholm. This is a big element, and 67, ladies and gentlemen, which is right here. The 67 matches the episode, Think Tank episode 67, which is his birth card through the tarot. This is the architect, which means that holmium is the architect. And I'm going to show you how dialed in this 67 is through a scripted reality. Okay. So 164,000 subscribers, 164. Think tank number 67, 67 protons. Robert Edward Grant having the 67th tarot card for his birthday on May 16th, 1969. See how all these things line up? So when you have the eyes to see, you can now begin to understand my world and what I see as a code breaker. Let's keep going right here and let's break this all down. And these two gentlemen, during this podcast, they talked about the Yod and the Elohim. Greg Braden is heavily tied to it, and I broke him down already. I'm going to bring a little bit of that with this presentation. But you see, this right here is Genesis 2 verses 4, the very first time Yod Elohim is brought onto the scene. Well, that's a 67, which again connects to Robert Edward Grant's birth card. So what's scripting what's running through him? Well, obviously through the context of this, it's part of the Torah. And Greg Braden breaks down the Torah code so much in his life. I'm going to show you why that is, to repeat and show you. But you see, 67 through mathematics is the 19th prime number, and the 19th card in the tarot is the sun. So you have the architect, and the architect is the sun, light, because we're in the light game. And then 19 is the 8th prime number, and it stops there because 8 is a composite number. But 8 is all we need to see because there's pi, 3.14 when you add them up equals the number 8, and it's the snake that eats its own tail. This is what we're in. We're in a Taurus field. Robert Edward Grant, his sun is in Taurus. We're in a Taurus field. We're in the hourglass. Like the sands of time, so are the days of our lives. Do we ever get out of this? Is this a prison? Some people think so. Some people think so. You can see how mathematics tie to numerology. Some call it gematria. I call it numerology, the science of numbers, and the tarot, and mainstream, and esoteric. So the 8, of course, is tied to the analemma. The sun makes the analemma shape as it moves across the sky, as it moves across the Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn. But this is where it gets really interesting. We bring chemistry into this. And Gregg did talk about chemistry quite a bit during the episode 67. So all we have to do is take the mathematical equation of prime numbers, 67 being the 19th prime, 19 being the 8th prime. It stops there because 8 is a prime number, 8 is a composite number, and we just simply add up the molar masses and we get 220 with these. So the origination, of course, is Yahweh Elohim, which means architect. He has the 67th card for his birth card. He is an architect, as is Gregg Braden. And then what does the 220 lead to? Well, it leads to the tree of life and tree of knowledge from the original Hebrew. That's right. Hebrew, not the Gematria, the Hebrew or the origination. Aleph 1, Bet 2, Gimel 3. That lineup, 220. Both trees end up leading right back to the origin of Genesis 2 verses 4. Genesis 1 verses 26, let us make man in our image. That's the Elohim talking, the gods. Poly, more than one. The council, Psalms 82. The 220 is a master builder with infinite potential on the back end. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, and 0 means infinite potential. 22 means recycle. 22 is organic, natural. The recycling of human beings perhaps back into over and over and over. And when the sands run out, it gets flipped back over again. The snake eats its own tail. So that's how big this 67 is, based upon this being episode number 67, based upon Robert Edward Grant's birth card being the 67th card in the deck in the tarot. Not a coincidence. Not a coincidence. Let's keep going. We're now going to add up the neutrons, protons, and electrons of holmium, potassium, and oxygen. And look at what number we get. We get pi 314, which is exactly the numbers of how long this podcast was. 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 40 seconds. 134 is right there. 314, which add up to the number 8, which is the hourglass, which is the aurora boreas, the snake eating its own tail. The number 8 tied to the 19, tied to the 67, tied to the Yahweh Elohim, tied to the tree of life and tree of knowledge. See, we live on pi. Earth is pi. Pi is time. Pi is tied to the sun, tied to Ra. You're going to see that, Ra, right here. Exodus 3 verses 14, which they talked about. They talked about Moses going up to Mount Sinai and Gregg Braden mentioning he's been there. And when you add up the neutrons, protons, and electrons, it's all chemistry of Ra. Ra being the Egyptian sun god. You get 314, which is exactly the chapter and verse of the Yahweh saying, I am who I am. I will become who I become. Yeah, I become you. I'll become Gregg Braden. Everybody having this experience called life. This 314. So the 314 is tied to holmium, potassium, and oxygen. And through mathematics, the origination is that 67. I'm going to show you how amazing this is through the Torah. But before I do that, I want to remind all of you, if you haven't watched my Tower of Ra Decoded and my Watchtower breaking down the Jehovah's Witnesses organization, and the reason why I did that is because, you see, I was fascinated, and I still am, between this element radium, this radium-226, 88 protons. The isotope is 226. So I was like, one day I'm like, well, what's the 88th letter in the Torah? Well, you got to go to Genesis 1 verses 3. And the 88th letter is the He, which is the 5th letter of the Torah. There are 5 books of the Torah, mind you. 5 fingers, 5 toes, 5 senses, 5 books of the Torah. The Yod He. The He means the screen, looking through the window. And then what's the 226th letter? Well, it's the Yod, of course. So we have the Yod He. So we can tie it easily to Ra. Ra being the Egyptian sun god. The law of one material. And the Ra from there was from the 6th density Venus, which is about love. Tied to Jesus, being about love and light. We live in a scripted reality, folks. Choice is an illusion. Is that something that you can see here? Or do you think you have choices? How are all these things lining up this way? Well, let's go to some more mathematics. Let's look at the sine and cosine waves, because the sine and cosine wave are tied to the sun. The sun makes up the sine wave. Perhaps the moon is the cosine wave. But you see, this number, 314, which is the total addition of the neutrons, protons, and electrons of raw radium, 88 plus 226 is 314. Well, you can see the sine and cosine wave of the 314 is the number 1 and 9. If we just go right past the first point of the decimal, it's the 1 and the 9, which is 19, or the 91. Well, 9 plus 1 is 10. The 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is the yod. This looks a heck of a lot like the hay. Robert mentions this during the podcast, that hay looks a lot like pi. Well, it does. Right? It totally does. Well, when you go deeper into this, you can start to see how biology meshes up with sine and cosine waves, because our DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acid, kind of looks like sine and cosine waves right here. Now, here are the 5 elements that make up the nucleotides for not just DNA, but RNA. Hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus. It's interesting because nitrogen and oxygen are mainly the air that we breathe. Carbon is what we're made up of. Hydrogen is the sun. And phosphorus, which is tied to Lucifer and tied to Venus, means light. So we literally have the light with air tied to matter, tied to the sun. These 5 elements. And when you say sine wave and cosine wave in Chaldean, you get 74, which is exactly the molar mass of these 5 elements. 74. 74 is tied to tungsten. Tungsten, they used to make light bulbs with it. Light is a so below from the sun in the as above. This right here is the all-seeing eye. This is the mitre hat. This is the NFL football. This is the eye of providence. Sine and cosine waves tied to the sun, which is what is shown here. This was probably one of the greatest things I've ever discovered, where this is the image of the sun taken on the same day of every month for 13 months. 12 months, but you get out on 13. The sun running in patterns of 13, not 12. Sol is 13. 13, the number means magic through expansion. Leadership through expansion. That's what the 13 means. And the sine and cosine wave is tied to Ra. It's tied to pi. It makes this sine wave, which is right here. You can't miss it, folks. So the sun has so much to do with our scripted reality. Radium-226, which is tied to our DNA. Our DNA comes from RNA, and the RNA is the sine wave. The sun creating the sine wave, creating our dualistic reality. So we go back to this 67. Let's touch in some more mathematics and look at the sine and cosine wave of the number 67, since Robert Edward Grant, born on May 16th, has the 67th tarot card for his birth. Well, when you add up the double digits with the sine and cosine wave of the number 67, 85 plus 51, you get 136, which is exactly what his birthday is. May 16th on the Gregorian calendar is day number 136. That's how special, how important, how magnificent, how he got his intelligence, why he's coded like this, why he's in the flow state, why he's all about the pyramids. Pyramids tied to Ra, man. Ra. The architect. He's got the card of the architect. He played around with the architect. Artificial intelligence. 67 being the 19th prime, 19 being tied to the sun. So I decided, okay, we did the 88 and the 226 in the Torah. How about the 67 and the 165 for holmium? Now keep in mind, holmium is the most magnetic element on the entire periodic table. The most magnetic. Got a typo right there. But you see, when you go 67 letters in the Torah, we got to go to Genesis 1 verses 2. There it is. The 67th letter is the 13th letter in the Hebrew alphabet. It's Mem. And Mem is one of the 3 mother letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Shin, Mem, and Aleph are the 3 mother letters. Well, Mem sits in the middle. It's 13. Remember that 13 is the pattern of the sun. Mem. And then what's the 165th letter to match the isotope of holmium? Well, it's Mem again. And what happens when you add 13 plus 13? You get 26, which is the full 4-letter Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh, the tetragrammaton, which is Yah. This is the big takeaway, Yah, which is going to give you 15. It's going to give you 15, man. So that's the most magnetic, holmium. So where are these tied? What words are they tied to? Well, the 67th letter is tied to this word right here called hovering, or was hovering. The Spirit of God was hovering. And then what is the 165th letter tied to? The word day. And then when you bring them together, here they are. The 67th letter was Mem. The 165th letter was Mem, but they were formed from hovering and day. And when you add these up using the original Hebrew, you get 109. And this is exactly what Robert Edward Grant's Gregorian life path is. 109. 109 is the 29th prime number. And 29 is the 10th prime number, and it stops there because 10 is a composite number, but we have the clue that we needed, and 10 is the letter Yod in Hebrew. This means possession. Like, this is an apostrophe, right? What happens when you add an apostrophe onto an English word? It means possession. Apostrophe S, it means possession. That's why in Genesis 6 verses 3, it says, my spirit shall not reside in man forever, through the context of the Torah. Remember, his 67th birth card comes from the 29th card in the cards of illumination. Right here. This is Robert Edward Grant's birth card, the 29. And the 3 of diamonds becomes the 3 of pentacles, right here. And this is how dialed in he is. So his life path becomes the 29, which is his birth card, and the 29 becomes the 10, and the 10 is the Yod. And this is all found from the code through the Torah, based upon the Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh. And they talked about it extensively during that podcast, just 11, 12 hours ago. So what is up with this 67 and holmium? Why was it episode 67 for this think tank between Gregg Braden and Robert Edward Grant? Well, 67 being holmium, you can see that holmium, when you do the numerology of it, is 30. This reduces down to the number 3. 3 means expansion. The 3rd letter in Hebrew is Gimel. Well, it's holmium 30. It's demiurge. The Gnostics call the god of this world the demiurge. Well, then you have the great Allah from the Quran. That's a 30 in the original Arabic. No coincidence there. Covered this already. We have the New Age name, Jehovah. That's a 30. We have the reduction of Yaldabaoth, the Gnostic demiurge in the Greek. They all reduce down to the number 3. 3 means expansion. And they're all tied to the sun. The sun expands through light. That's what it does. That's what this holmium ends up tying to. So when you start to chase this is called chasing in code breaking. Holmium comes from a Latin word called holmia, which is the word of Stockholm. This is the city of Stockholm. They called it holmia. This is where this element was tied to, or is tied to. Well, obviously Stockholm in Latin is 109, and we just go right back and chase that all the way down to the number 10, which is the Yod. Sweden has so much to do with this. Well, the interesting part is the word sun in Hebrew, which is shomesh, matches holmia. 55 adds up to the number 10, and you go right back to the yod again. This is why in Psalms 84 verses 10, it says the Lord God is a sun. That's why Jesus says there's no darkness in God, because it's light. Yeah, the sun has no darkness in it. And then you just simply take the latitude, longitude of Stockholm, and you add those up and you get 55. Are you seeing this code, man? See, this is a scripted reality that we live in. This is how dialed in this podcast right here was. Episode number 67. Let's keep going with this. I want to show you, this was off of the Gregg Braden. When I broke everything down. I am the Alpha and Omega. In Genesis 1 verses 8, I am day and night. Well, here it is in Hebrew, day and night. See, this was day, right? Day is 29, which is copper. That's Robert's birth card. Copper is very electric. Copper is Venus, love. And then nighttime, yttrium. There's the Y, there's the yod right there. And when you add up the neutrons, protons, and electrons of day and night, which is Alpha and Omega, this is Horus and Set, you get 220, which is exactly that numerology for the tree of life and tree of knowledge. It means light and darkness. That's what it means. It's very simple. The moon is the sun at night. This is chemistry and numerology and all that kind of stuff. So when you go into the Torah and you look to find what the 221st word is, the 220th word in the Torah is frickin' Elohim. Let us make man in our image. Yeah, they made a dualistic reality. The trees are duality. The 220th letter in the Torah is Elohim. Coincidence? No. This is how case specific the Torah is. So I covered this when I broke down Gregg and his amazing mind. And, this is how scripted he is. He was born on June 28th, which is the 179th day of the year. And 179 is the 41st prime number, which is Elohim. That's how dialed in. And that's why he breaks down the Torah, and he breaks down the Torah code, and he breaks down the Hebrew Bible, and he finds the DNA in there. And yeah, because this is the Elohim working through him. I don't take anything away from any of these people. You think I'm finding this? No, I'm an instrument to show you that we are being used as instruments. So what is the 179th digit in the Torah? It's the yod. 179th letter in the Torah is the yod. And this guy was born on the 179th day of the year. And 179 is the 41st prime, and 41 is Elohim. And the 220th word is Elohim in the Torah, which is the tree of life and tree of knowledge. So what is the difference between the two? Nothing. Nothing. It's a big coup. This is how tied in, this is how tight this is. So I have a little bit more to go here. This podcast, this one, came out on today, July 1st. So what's the July 1st card in the tarot? The Ace of Swords, July 1st. I'm going to go to the card so you can see. Here's the boilerplate chart for the cards. Here's July 1st, the Ace of Spades, which turns into the Ace of Swords. Right here, card 51. 51 is a mirror of 15, and Yod Hey is 15, you see. So you just take his card, and then Gregg Braden has the 7 of Hearts, the 7 of Cups, card number 43, and you add them all up, 67 plus 51 plus 43, and we get that magical, beautiful golden ratio. How about that? The golden ratio. Yeah, so their conversation was golden, you see, absolutely golden. And then if you take their birth cards found from the tarot cards, well, you see, this is an ace. A is 1, right? A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. So we have 1, 3, 7, which is what? The fine structure constant, which Robert talks about during this podcast. Well, it just so happens that 137 in leap years is May 16th. This is the day he was born on. And the element that he's attached to is barium. Lights, camera, action. The Ra, the Ba, and the Ka. Now, what's fascinating about this is that the 56 protons, you just separate those numbers. Remember, Yod, He, Vahe, the Vahe is 6 and 5. Because the Vahe means the movie. Well, when you go to sports, this is how ridiculous our reality is scripted. The most popular sport in the world is football. In America, it's called soccer. It's far superior to any other sport. Well, what are the shapes on a soccer ball? The pentagram and the hexagon. Or the pentagon and the hexagon. 5-sided, 6-sided. 5-sided, 6-sided. This is a truncated icosahedron. Black and white. Duality, is it not? I did a whole breakdown on who created the soccer ball. I showed you how scripted he was on my truncated icosahedron Decoded. But you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, here are the isotopes of barium. Has 6 stable isotopes. 6 is the first perfect number. 6 is the last day of creation. 6 is carbon. We're made up of carbon. 6 is Virgo, the largest constellation in the zodiac. It's the sign of the snake, which was in the garden. Where this is the year of Virgo and the snake. I mean, I could go on and on. So, when we go and we break down 56 and 137, since this is tied right to Robert Edward Grant and his birthday, what's the 56th letter in the Torah? The Va. What is the 137th letter? The He. So you literally have the 5 and the 6 matching the 56 protons, which matches that truncated icosahedron. Means the movie, man. 56 means the movie. Lights, camera, action, which means the Yod. This is the movie. This is the controller of the movie. Broke all this down in the Yod He Vahe Decoded. So when you go deeper with this, we're almost finished with this. You can start to see, ladies and gentlemen, how magical mathematics become. So this is a pentagram and a hexagon. So we go to the pentagonal numbers. And this is a 5-sided polygonal. So we go to the pentagonal and we go 5 letters, 5 numbers. The 5th pentagonal number is E, 5. And then we go to the hexagonal for the white and we go 6. And the 6th hexagonal number is 66. And then we just take a look and see how these match up when you add them up. 35 and 66 gives us 101. And 101 is the 26th freaking prime number, which is the Yod He Vahe. And on top of that, this is the Spirit of God, which is exactly what the 5th pentagonal number becomes. So what does the He mean? The Spirit of God. What does the Vav mean? The golden ratio. So what is the golden ratio? The Spirit of God. The spiral, which forms a Mandelbrot set. When you bring 2 golden ratios together, it forms the Mandelbrot set. 75's tied to rhenium, which is another aspect of Ra. The Spirit of God, the Elohim. 75, man. The He. So you can see the Spirit of God being the golden ratio. How many golden ratios have I shown decoding Robert Edward Grant? And now we bring Greg Braden into this and the whole entire podcast. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. What did you think? What did you see? Do you think we live in a scripted reality? How are these outcomes coming out like this? Did Robert consciously pick this one because he knew all of this information? He knew it was tied to Holmium. He knew it was tied to Yahweh Elohim. He never mentions the numerology of Yahweh Elohim in here. Neither one does. But there it is, folks. The Yahweh Elohim, man. I mean, it doesn't really get any more obvious than this. That this matches this. And Yahweh Elohim becomes the tree of life and tree of knowledge through chemistry. And he has the 67th birth card in the tarot. There's more to come with this. But this is how we live in a scripted reality, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. Scripted reality 30. Complete. That's why I chose the 30. It's tied to Allah. It's tied to Jehovah. It's tied to the Yod. It's tied to the Demiurge. It's tied to Yaldabaoth. Could go on and on and on. It's the element zinc. Zinc is essential for the immune system. Tied to phosphorus. It's tied to silicon. We could go on and on with this, ladies and gentlemen, but I hope you got something out of this. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think and how all these outcomes come out like this. Because I'm convinced that he didn't choose this based upon what I'm showing you here. Neither one of them talked about it. But there it was. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that's all I got for today. My name is Logan for Decode Your Reality. Until next time, we will see you later.